Identity is the dynamic interpretation we make of who we are, socially constructed from the knowledge and discourses that circulate in a culture. This determines how reality is interpreted and which identities are accepted or rejected. The recognition is fundamental in this process, since identity can only be consolidated when it is validated by others. Without authentic recognition, people are exposed to false, imposed identities, which leads to discrimination, exclusion, and self rejection. The construction of identity is influenced by different actors and structural conditions, including homogenic discourses like institutions, media, politics, and culture that impose dominant views of what is normal and valued. The state and laws which grant or deny recognition and rights to certain groups. The culture, traditions, and social institutions like family, school, religion, which transmit and legitimize identities. And finally, the socioeconomic conditions such as poverty, inequality, or job insecurity, which limited the possibilities for a full recognition.
I will talk about the mistake people of Oaxaca, who call themselves New Xavi, or the people of the rain. They are one of the largest indigenous groups in Mexico, with a strong history of farming, weaving, and crafts. However, they have often been a false identity through stereotypes. Their language, for example, is treated as unimportant. So many parents stop teaching mistake to their children to protect them from discrimination. Economically, most families rely on a small scale farming and crafts, but instead of being valued, these practices are often seen as signs of poverty or backwardness. And because many communities are rural and isolated, they are frequently invisible in national life. These misrepresentations are created a false image of mistake and people that ignores the resilience and richness of their culture.
Well, for the consequences, the false identity placed on the Mixtec people through discrimination against their language, poverty, and isolation creates serious problems for their cultural lives. One of them is the loss of language and culture, because speaking Mixtec is often looked down on. Many parents stop teaching it to their children. Also, in 2010, more than 20% of Mixtec speakers could not speak Spanish, which made it harder for them to study, get healthcare, or find jobs. This pressure causes younger generations to abandon their language, putting over 80 Mixtec variants at risk of disappearing and leaving young people disconnected from their roots. Poverty and migration is the second consequence, and more than half of indigenous towns in Oaxaca are highly marginalized. Many Mixtec families survive through self-employment at rates twice the national average, showing both exclusion and resilience. With few opportunities, thousands migrate to northern Mexico or the US to work in fields where they often face discrimination and exploitation, being insultingly called Oaxaquitas. This reinforces the false idea that they are less valuable citizens.
So let's talk about identity. It's not for your name or where you're from. It's like everything around you, people, culture, even that you see on social media. But here's the thing. Sometimes society makes up fake identities and that really messes people up. That take the mixed people from Oaxaca, the people of Terrain, cool name, right? But they have gone wrong. There are like 80 different mixed language, but a lot of them are disappearing because people think speaking mixed isn't cool or valuable. Can you believe that? Over 20% of them don't speak Spanish, so going to school or getting a job, it's super hard. And because of all this, a lot of them end up in poverty or have to immigrate. And then they face more discrimination. So yeah, it sucks. But they have a good part. We can actually fit this. How is it? Support bilingual education, serve their language, and invest in their community so they don't have to leave. Identity should be something that you're proud of, not something that society make it to hide. Let's make it to happen.
In conclusion, we must remember that identity is a social construct needing valid recognition to thrive. When recognition is disturbed by prejudice, it becomes a tool of oppression, and we see with the Mixtec people of Oaxaca. The false identity imposed on them has created a devastating cycle. Their languages are devaluated, causing many to stop passing them on to avoid discrimination. Economically, over half of their municipalities are highly marginalized, forcing self-employment rates to double the national average out of their sheer necessity. Poverty pushes thousands to migrate, where they face exploitation, reinforcing the cruel narrative that they are somehow less valuable citizens. To break this cycle, we need concrete, targeted actions. First, by implementing bilingual education programs that actively preserve and value the many mixed languages. And second, by making direct economic investments in their communities to fight the marginalization that forces them from their homes. True recognition is not passive, it is providing the tangible support that empowers a community to thrive on its own terms and define itself with dignity.